We'll call this council meeting to order at 6 p.m. I need a motion for adoption of the minutes, please.
Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting of council held at City Hall on Monday, March 25th, 2019 be adopted as circulated.
Moved by Councillor Budds and seconded by Councillor Meyer. All those in favor? And that's carried. We have no delegations this evening. However, we do have some public hearings. So we'll open the public hearing for variation PC 12-19. This is for the Portage la Prairie School Division. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing?
Yes.
Your name, sir?
Craig Enns.
Craig, would you take the podium, please?
Absolutely. Well, good evening, Council. My name is Craig Enns. I'm here from Stantec Architecture. I'm one of the lead designers on the project to build a new childcare facility at the existing North Memorial School. And so today I'm accompanied by Todd Cunnington from the school division, and sending his regards, Jeff Monroe's the architect of record from Stantec. So today we're here to apply for a variance. The project in question, or the site in question, North Memorial School, we have some proposed work to construct a new child care facility at the site. I guess the work here, the development would be considered an accessory use, and as such it triggers some parking requirements to the site. So based on basically the size of the new school and the amount of buildings, or the amount of rooms I should say, we're required to add 16 new stalls to the existing school. The parking lot that is currently there is sufficient in size to accommodate the new 16 stalls, so we're compliant on that regard. But there is also a requirement to pave the additional stalls. So it's this paving aspect that we are here to apply for variance to remove that. There are several reasons we believe that it should be accepted. I think possibly one of the biggest reasons is because we're not actually needing to construct a new parking lot. The parking lot is actually significantly large enough to accommodate the new 16. So if we were going to be paving, we would just be paving the portion, well, just a portion to accommodate the new 16. On top of that, we've added a new drop-off lane and some significant improvements to the site, which I think should be considered in our application to remove the parking requirements. So I think there's some documentation here which I can pass around. That kind of summarizes the context and some of the design considerations that we've made. So.
Did council have any questions for Craig? Councillor Wall?
Yes, Your Worship. Just wondering how many parking spots are currently there?
Currently there's 21 stalls there.
21 stalls?
Yes.
And they're not all being utilized?
I don't know if they're all being utilized. All I know is that based on the new childcare facility, we have to add 16. Right. So we'll be going up to 37 stalls. So as you can see, there is a lot of, if you take away the 16, there's a lot of space on that parking lot. So I don't know if they're all being used right now. You might know.
We have space available for
yeah.
Public.
And how many more staff will be at this new daycare?
It's a 76 child care seats available. I don't know what WeWorld estimates for their total staffing.
So you're not proposing to
yeah.
have a gravel parking lot there. You're just proposing to have no more parking lot?
I'm sorry?
You're not proposing to have an unpaved parking lot for this facility. You're just proposing to not have any additional parking.
The entire parking area right now that you see here in the drawing is gravel.
So yeah, what we're proposing is nothing new, nothing in addition to what is currently there, and just the removal of the requirement to pave 16 stalls within the existing lot.
Your Worship. Councillor Budds?
So just to be clear, if council was not in support of, because as you know, this is not something we normally do in terms of not requesting the paving to be done. Just to be clear, if that was a request that needed to be complied with in terms of paving, you would only be paving the new or required lots and would not touch the rest of the gravel lot. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any further questions for Mr. Enns from council? Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Can I speak to the project, Your Worship?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Cunnington.
Okay. So just, good evening, everyone. Thank you for hearing us. I just want to give a little bit of the backstory on the North Memorial Child Care Project. This was a project that was announced by the provincial government many years ago. With the previous NDP government, it was announced. Then the project was shelved as there was a review of all yet to be completed NDP projects, and families put this on hold as they did a review of all projects that were pending. And then it was announced that it would proceed. We feel that the community definitely needs it. We've had a great success with childcare that exists within our Equal Crescent View School. What you should know is that when the project was originally proposed, the design for the community did not meet with what the trustees of the Portage la Prairie School Division felt was appropriate. And so again, the project was revisited with families, the ministry, and education. Initially, it was a pitched roof structure with a stucco exterior. We felt that it wouldn't complement the neighborhood. And so at considerable expense, this project was taken back to Stantec, and I think it showed that the division was really considering how we could improve the north end by offering a design that would be a lasting and very key part of the neighborhood. And so a new design was proposed. Okay, and this has been shared at our public open house. It'll offer 76 seats, much needed with the fact that our community is growing due to the industrial growth that's happening. It will be a brick stone facade exterior. Initially it was going to be concrete. We've gone to a flat roof design, so it's going to complement the North Memorial School. And basically what we're asking for is just to continue with the gravel parking lot that is the same as all of the other schools in the Portage la Prairie School Division, with the exception of PCI. And so we feel that this project is in jeopardy if we have to go back to public school finance and ask for an additional $160,000 for paving costs, which are not part of the project. The division is not in a position that they could cough up that, and it's certainly paying for paving when we have much needed expenses for education. I don't think that's something that it's certainly not something we budgeted for. So I think this project, it would be in jeopardy if that was to be the ask. Given that all of our other parking lots currently are gravel, it would seem an odd way to spend money to create one strip of asphalt within an already gravel parking lot, which is basically what we would be asked to do. So with that, I'd just like you to give this further consideration, and if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Yeah.
Did council have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else here to speak to the hearing? Okay, need a motion to close the hearing?
Be it resolved that the public hearing for variation PC 12-19 Portage la Prairie School Division for 410 6th Avenue Northeast now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Wall. All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
We can move on. Thank you, Your Worship. So, Council, as you've heard from our presenters tonight, the issue that we have in front of us is an applicant is applying for a variance to allow for an unpaved parking lot on the property so described. The background, as you're aware, is that the Portage la Prairie School Division is applying for a variance to allow for an unpaved parking lot for 16 new parking stalls that will be created for the daycare building to be built on the property. As you might be aware, the building is an OR, or open space recreational zone, and as per City of Portage la Prairie zoning bylaw 10-8492 does state that the surface of the accessory off-street parking shall be surfaced with asphalt or concrete and designed in such a manner that there be no free flow of water. And you can certainly read the rest. The history, as you're probably aware, is that there's been a number of requests in the past. 3 that have been denied, or the only 3, requests that have actually come forward to council in the past, and all 3 have been denied. Formerly the Stride Place, formerly the PCU Center, and then council did deny a request to the Portage la Prairie School Division on 2 occasions for unpaved parking lot for Portage Collegiate back in the days of amalgamation. So there is precedent already on the record. The application has been circulated, as you're aware, to various city departments. They too have expressed some concern in regarding about setting a precedent of unpaved parking lots if this variation is approved. Public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. And based on administration recommendation, now keep in mind that what I'm going to voice here is in the negative. So recommendation at this point in time is that the Council of City of Portage la Prairie deny the variation request of Portage la Prairie School Division to allow for an unpaved parking lot at the property known as 410 6th Avenue Northeast, which is legally described as Lot A, Plan 972, Parish of Portage la Prairie, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Wall. Any comments or questions on the motion? Councillor Meyer?
Sure, I'd like to speak to it further. I certainly am very empathetic. I'm quite familiar with the project, and I do understand certainly our need for further daycare spots, especially in this city. I understand there's quite a lengthy waiting list. I don't really want to see something like this delay a project or scuttle a project in any way, shape, or form. But of good faith, I cannot, I vote actually in favor of the motion, which is the, or I will be voting in favor of the motion, which is to deny the application based on previous precedent, and we can go from there.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Knox.
Your Worship, I think I would feel if the rest of the parking lot was already paved and they didn't want to pave the rest, then I could be behind this motion. But knowing that childcare spots are at a minimal in our whole province, let alone in Portage, that I will not vote in favor of this denial.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Knox. Councillor Wall.
Yes, based on precedent and the fact that the school division is aware from the Prince Charles School parking lot, which was fairly expensive to pave, that people should have been aware of this and it should have been a part of the project. And I'll be voting in favor of the motion.
Councillor Buds.
Yeah, this is an issue that I'm familiar with as we've dealt with these types of requests before. I came here with a feeling that I was going to support the administrative recommendation, but I asked clearly with the knowledge that wondering if we were going to pave the whole parking lot and not just look at that one little section within the gravel. And so that's what's changed my mind here tonight, and I will not be supporting it as well, simply because we're still going to have 3/4 of the parking lot gravel. And so if it was a matter of that project going to be inclusive of the whole parking lot, then I would support it. In fact, it's going to probably be more troublesome in having a small portion of that parking lot paved and the rest gravel for whoever's cleaning it, etc. So it just doesn't make sense to me. And so I know that there is precedent, but this is an exception to that precedent for me.
Thank you, Councillor Buds. Councillor Draycott.
Thank you. I would add to it, I'm familiar with the parking lot as I have attended that location on many occasions. And it does seem a little odd that we would require the new parking lot to be paved that is actually an existing current parking lot. Just the addition of more stalls in that parking lot that already exists. I can say that the gravel parking lots in the school division aren't my favorite place to go, as it's difficult to maneuver through some of the schools' parking lots because of the weather that we do have. And I would like to see that move to a paved parking lot scenario for many of the schools in our community, but I also do appreciate that the spots that are necessary for childcare in our community and the assistance that this particular building will give to the people in that area will be just huge for them. Having childcare next to a school for both school age and for younger children is just going to be a huge asset to that area going forward. So I appreciate the precedent that's been set previously, and I do appreciate the points that you made about the school division knowing that this would be a requirement, given that we've been through this with them already with previous parking lots, but the knowledge that they aren't going to pave the whole parking lot in just a small strip that is currently gravel just doesn't make sense to me at this point in time.
Okay. Councillor Buds.
One further comment, I guess, would be just council understanding the process, I guess, if this doesn't receive support. Just for the record, Mr. Pito, do you want to refresh council on that process?
As Councillor Meyer mentioned, the motion is made in the negative to deny the application, the recommendation from administration, and was carried by yourself. That is the motion on the books. If this motion were to be defeated, there would be no decision, and councillor would need to make another motion to either approve or vary the request at some point. Unusually, since we do have even numbers, it should be noted if there is a tie vote, the motion is also defeated.
Thank you.
Okay.
Could I ask you to read back the motion one more time as I presented it? Do you mind?
So the current motion is that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie deny the variation request of Portage la Prairie School Division to allow for an unpaved parking lot at the property known as 410 6th Avenue Northeast, which is legally described as Lot A, Plan 972, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
Okay, any other further questions, comments on the motion? Okay, everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? And the motion's defeated.
Your Worship, I'll make a new motion.
Okay.
Be it resolved that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the variation request of the Portage la Prairie School Division to allow for an unpaved parking lot at the property known as 410 6th Avenue Northeast, which is legally described as Lot A, Plan 972, Parish of Portage la Prairie.
And you so move?
I so move.
Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Wall? Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor? All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? And that's carried. Okay. We'll open the public hearing for conditional use PC 1319, and this is for Bridge Road Land Management Limited at the corner of Park Drive and 18th Street Northwest. Is there anyone here to speak to the hearing? Okay, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Right there. Be it resolved that the public hearing for conditional use PC 13-19 Bridge Road Land Management Limited now be closed.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. All those in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, Council, the request that we have in front of us is to allow for multi-family dwellings in a C3 Avenue commercial zone. Our alternatives tonight are to approve the conditional use application as presented, to approve the conditional use application with conditions, or to deny the conditional use application. So a bit of the background is Bridge Road Land Management Limited has applied for a conditional use to allow for multifamily dwellings in a C3 Avenue commercial zone. The applicant wishes to build an assisted living facility. And I believe you've all got the sketches attached. The application was circulated to various departments. No concerns, but based on the information supplied, a variance would be required to reduce the number of parking stalls. Public notices have been sent to all property owners within a 100-meter radius. There only was one concern, and that is with CN Rail. CN Rail has some concerns about sensitive development within the proximity to their lines because of maybe the potential for conflicts between the proposed residential use and the noise and vibration from the rail operations. CN does not support this application, but if Council does approve the conditional use, they would require the following. And there's about 5 bullet points there for your reference. Based on the recommendation, and be it resolved, and that I so move that the Council of City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Bridge Road Land Management Limited to allow for multifamily dwellings in a C3 Avenue commercial zone at the property on corner of Park Drive and 18th Street Northwest, which is legally described as Lot 22, Block 5, Plan 1810 within the parish of Portage la Prairie.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? Councillor Buds?
Yeah, thank you. There's, you know, it's not common, I guess, that we have that many items noted by one of the people that we had contacted in a certain amount of radius. So CN definitely has some concerns with regards to noise and how close it is to their lines. Are we comfortable in addressing these concerns if this project goes forward, I guess, is the question I have.
I would refer that back to our city manager.
Through your worship, to Councillor Budd's question, I would ask our Director of Operations, Kelly Braden, to speak to some of the concerns regarding CN and the conditions outlined in the report. Mr. Braden? I was just asking you to speak to some of the items in the report, some of the concerns put forward by CN Rail, if you could speak to them.
Actually, I didn't even deal with this project at all as far as CN goes, so I think Helm dealt with that.
Mr. Brooks is out of the building at the moment. Would you be able to get him?
It just, there's quite a few things here that CN has outlined that the owner would need to deal with, or they're recommending that the owner would need to deal with. And if that's an issue with the current owner, I'd like council to have a clear understanding of any disparities between what CN thinks needs to be done and the owner of the property.
Your Worship, can I just, is this the Daughter on Call project? Yeah, okay.
No.
So, Mr. Brooks, through your worship to Mr. Brooks, there was questions regarding the conditions or the suggested conditions put forward by CN, and if you wouldn't mind just speaking to them and what kind of requirements that puts on the property owner.
Okay.
They're similar to what were approved for the one for Bakari. They're both similar. They are in the report there. They say you have to have a berm, fencing, sound, for sound and for security reasons. And Bakari's, I believe the motion was to approve it with, it might have been with the conditions that follow the CN or CP guidelines at that time.
Mr. Brooks, I was the one who was asking the questions, and I was just, like, the way the recommendation reads is we basically allow for the but it doesn't really say under the conditional use that we follow the recommendation. So if we actually wanted these things identified from CN, we're going to have to include that in the approved conditional use recommendation. Correct?
Again, I go back to the one we did for Bakari, and I think all we did say in it that they had to follow the CP guidelines or recommendations. We didn't list them all. We just said follow the guidelines proposed. So having said that, I think if you wanted to amend this and say to adhere to CN, the CN requirements.
Your Worship, Councillor Wall has a question.
Councillor Wall?
I'd like to amend the motion.
Okay, you've got the wording?
The wording is to meet the requirements of CNR as outlined in their recommendation.
Okay. Amended?
It'll have to be formally added to that recommendation.
Sure.
Do we need to vote on the amendment?
We need a seconder for the
Yeah,
amendment.
a seconder for the amendment. Moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Meyer. So, read back the amendment.
That the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Bridge Road Land Management Limited to allow for multifamily dwellings in a C3 Avenue commercial zone at the property on the corner of Park Drive and 18th Street Northwest, which is legally described as Lot 22, Block 5, Plan 1810, Parish of Portage la Prairie, to meet the requirements of CN Rail as outlined in their recommendation. Does that make sense?
Councillor Draycott.
Sorry, Your Worship, just to follow up a little bit further on that, as one of the requirements from CN would be the placement of a berm. It says, now forgive me, I had it right there and then I walked away from it for a moment. Habitable buildings from the railway right-of-ways to be a minimum of 30 meters in conjunction with a safety berm. A safety berm shall be adjoining and parallel to the railway right-of-ways with returns at the ends, and then the meters set out there. Now, as we did approve this with a previous conditional use, this reads that, to me, that the berm would be required to be adjoining the railway, which is not where this property is located. Am I reading that correctly?
I think in rereading this, actually, the amendment is incorrect. The amendment should actually be to insert the warning from Canadian National Railways as they recommend that this clause should be inserted in the development agreement. But we do have the amendment before us, and we have to vote on it, and then we can consider another amendment.
Okay. So, just so we're all clear, and we have an amended motion that's been put forward by
We
Councillor...
have an amendment to vote on.
Amendment to vote on. It's been put forward by Councillor Wall, second by Councillor Meyer. Would anybody like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Wall, I'm thinking you might want to.
Yes, I'd like to actually speak against the amendment.
No, I don't.
As further reading of the information in front of me indicates that it would not be the best way to proceed, and that the best way might be to insert this recommended clause from CNR to warn the developer of problems that could arise.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Budds?
I guess my first comment is how important is that this gets dealt with tonight versus tabled to our next council meeting to allow for the proper investigation to occur between what we actually approved with Bakari, so that there's some consistency here. Because I'm not convinced that, you know, the wording that was approved for that development would be the same as this, and they should be.
Well, that's possible, but I think this would be the correct wording.
I'm not convinced of that, Councillor Wall.
Mr. Brooks, could you give us an idea of the urgency of this? Does this have to be dealt with tonight, in your opinion?
I don't think it does. I guess it kind of depends on whether they have a clause with the city on a sale of the land by a certain date.
Through your worship to council, the sale agreement does have a clause, but I believe it would be opened if it was deferred to the next council meeting. I don't believe we could defer it again.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on the motion, which is to amend the motion? Okay. So being really clear, we're voting on an amendment. And could you read it one more time so everybody's clear? And this is the amendment that Councillor Wall moved and spoke against.
Resolved that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the conditional use application of Bridge Road Land Management Limited to allow for multifamily dwellings in a C3 Avenue commercial zone at the property on corner of Park Drive and 18th Street Northwest, which is legally described as Lot 22, Block 5, Plan 1810, Parish of Portage la Prairie, to meet the requirements of CNR as outlined in their recommendation.
Okay. All those, Councillor Wall.
Just to be clear, that's the entire motion with the amendment, and we're only voting on the amendment.
Right.
Not on the motion.
Okay. So, does anybody on council need just the amended portion read? No. Is everybody clear on that? Everybody's clear? Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? And the amendment is defeated. Takes us back to our original motion. And
I would like to have another amended recommendation, and that would be to table this item till our next council meeting.
If I may, motion to table wouldn't be an amendment, but it's a motion to table. It has no debate, requires a seconder, and the date as Councillor Buds has set for the next council meeting.
I will so second.
okay, that was seconded by Councillor Meyer. The motion is to table until the next council date, which is April the 23rd.
So seconded by yourself?
I'm sorry?
You seconded it?
Okay, any,
There's no debate.
okay, everybody's clear on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. And that concludes this evening's public hearing. We're going to move right into committees. First up is Finance Legislative Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you. There's nothing for my committee's report this evening in council.
Thank you. City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer.
Okay, what you see in front of you, of course, is the combined totals, Council, for permits for year-to-date, February 2019. We did review it in committee at last council meeting. Now it goes before here, so I guess if there's any questions. I know I spoke to it then at the year-to-date February of 2009. We're 3 times where we were last year at this time, where last year we roughly had 2.1 million in permits, where we're almost at $5.8 million in permits. So congratulations not only to PRED, but of course to the Portage Planning District, because I'm assuming with the higher dollar value in the permits, there's obviously more work that goes with it. So, and that is my report on that.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Community Services Committee, Councillor
I
Drake.
still think we have one more there, sorry. Sorry, that was my report on the building report. I apologize, Your Worship. I do have one more report to council that I do want to discuss. So the issue, of course, is the consideration of the application to subdivide Lot 1 Plan 52727 into 4 lots for multi-dwelling lots. So council, we have 3 alternatives. One is to approve the application as presented, to amend the proposed plan of the subdivision, or of course to deny the application. So to give you some background, the applicant proposes to subdivide Lot 1, Plan 52727 in River Lot 92, 93, and 94, Parish of Portage la Prairie, into 4 equal lots of approximately 2,000 square meters. Each lot will contain 12-unit life-lease multifamily residential building, and the lots are serviced with municipal services, including piped water, and are accessed via a municipal road. Part of our development plan does state, and I know that you're probably familiar with it, there has been recently a pattern of mixed retail commercial space, and mixed-use policies are intended to permit residential, retail, office, and service uses in these areas to support the existing retail space that's there. This subdivision does generally conform to the development plan. You're going to see some further comments for some easements and some caveats. The Community and Regional Planning does recommend approval of the subdivision, but as a condition of the subdivision, the city can require the owner to enter into a development agreement regarding the construction or maintenance of work associated with the proposed development. There you'll see the subdivision site map, and you'll also have a zoomed out site map. So be it resolved, and I so move that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie approve the subdivision of Lot 1, Plan 52727, River Lots 92, 93, and 94. Parish of Portage la Prairie to form 4 lots for multifamily dwellings, each containing 12 life lease units.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
Thank you, Worship. That is the end of my report.
Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Community Services Committee, Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nothing for community services at this moment.
Thank you. Waterworks Committee, Councillor Wall, please.
Yes, Your Worship. We have this evening the Water Pollution Control Facility annual report that we reviewed last time at committee, and the 2018 treatment plant annual report, which has to be approved by council and forwarded to Sustainable Development and then published on our website. The Office of Drinking Water of the Manitoba Sustainable Development requires an annual public water system report to be submitted and posted publicly online. Once accepted by council, the report will be posted on the website. Administration has also prepared the 2018 water treatment data report. The resolution is, and I so move, that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie accept the 2018 Public Water System Annual Report and the 2018 Water Treatment Plant Annual Data Report and forward the same to Manitoba's Sustainable Development Office of Drinking Water and authorize administration to post the reports on the city website.
Moved by Councillor Wall and seconded by Councillor Draycott. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried.
That's all I have, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Wall. Transportation Committee, Councillor Meyer for Councillor Espy this evening.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, you're going to see in front of you the issue is to award a 3-year contract for the collection of residential solid waste. I'm sorry, where am I? I am way ahead. Forgive me for that. Your Worship, the Transportation Committee has nothing to report
at this time. Thank you, Councillor Meyer. Public Safety Committee, Councillor Knox, please.
Nothing to report this evening, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have no deferred business. However, we do have some new business. We have the award of a tender for residential solid waste contract, and this would be the Chair of Transportation. Councillor Meyer, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Council, in front of you, the issue, of course, is to award a 3-year contract for the collection of residential solid waste, which is tender 19 OPS 001. The alternatives that we have, of course, are do not award the tender, or as you're going to see In the analysis, the award the tender to Waste Connections of Canada Incorporated. So you're going to see in front of you option 1, which has the price and the point systems. You're going to also see option number 2, which when we get into the analysis, includes something a little bit different. Jumping ahead of myself just a little bit, the tender was advertised on the city website and, of course, in Merck's. There were 7 companies were contacted, and the tender for the collection of residential solid waste did close March the 26th of 2019. This tender includes the collection of solid waste from all residential dwellings, including multiple family dwellings, in addition to the purchasing of 51,000 waste collection tags and landfill tipping fees. The term of this contract is 3 years, which is from August the 1st of 2019 to July the 31st of 2022. The second option, just to bring to your attention, was a part of this tender that's really never been included in past tenders before, and it identified a new way of using a side tip truck with 242-liter rollout carts, which I'm sure we've seen in some other municipalities. These carts were included in the cost of the bid, in which the city would then own them at the end of the contract. It was anticipated that the cost was in the range of an additional $325,000 for the initial supply and installation. Savings annually would be anticipated to be in the order of $50,000, but at this point in time, this option is not being recommended due to cost and implementation concerns, so an alternate procurement process could be considered in the future. The tender included a fixed price of $2 each for 51,000 waste tags over 3 years, or $17,000 a year, and that's based on past information. So in front of you, the low bidder is Waste Connections of Canada Incorporated, and is currently as well our present contract with the City of Portage la Prairie, and from my understanding, they've been contracted for the last 15 years. So the recommendation and I so move is that the Council of the City of Portage la Prairie award the contract for the collection of residential solid waste, that being option 1, for the 3-year period, August the 1st, 2019 to July the 31st, 2022, as specified in Tender 19 OPS 001, be awarded to Waste Connections of Canada, Inc. at the tendered price of $1,574,133.70, including taxes.
Moved by Councillor Meyer and seconded by Councillor Buds. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in Councillor Draycott.
I assume that it would be the city's goal to consider the option 2 in budgeting for the contract 3 years from now.
That was my understanding, that certainly that's going to be looked at, and that's why this option was asked for. Did you want to add anything further to that, Mr. Tate?
Through your worship to Councillor Draycott, I think administration wanted to get an idea what the cost would be and take a look at the option. The cost savings weren't really borne out in this tender. However, in the future, administration will continue to look at this option, also consider it with our recycling contract, and even compost pickup might be an option in the future, that we're considering all those options.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any further questions on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. One final piece of new business is the Portage Urban Indigenous Peoples Coalition. This is bylaw 19-8692. This is for first reading. Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Worship. So this evening we do have the issue to approve the new Urban Indigenous Peoples Coalition bylaw for the City of Portage la Prairie. The bylaw is required to govern a newly formed Portage Urban Indigenous Peoples Coalition, being a committee consisting of 2 councillors, the city's Indigenous coordinator, and several appointed members as outlined in the bylaw. The coalition will form a link between the City Council and Indigenous members of the community for the purpose of information sharing, as well as providing input, advice, and recommendations to the Council. So tonight, it is the administrative recommendation that bylaw number 19-8692, being the Urban Indigenous Peoples Coalition bylaw of the City of Portage la Prairie, now be read for the first time. And I so move.
Moved by Councillor Draycott and seconded by Councillor Knox. Any questions or comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? And that's carried. We have no old business this evening. So council is adjourned at 6:45 p.m. and we're going to move right into committee. And I just want to mention the committee is open to the press.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It is open to the press. And it's open to the public, so we'd welcome people to stay for committee. We'll call committee to order at 6:45 p.m. First up is Finance Legislative Property Committee. Councillor Buds, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's nothing from my committee to report this evening.
City Planning and Economic Development Committee. Councillor Meyer.
Thank you, Your Worship. The City Planning and Economic Development Committee has nothing to report.
Thank you. Community Service Committee. Councillor Draycott, please.
Thank you, Worship. I would like to invite up Ms. Michelle Cudmore and Don Body, co-chair of the Portage la Prairie Local Immigration Partnership. They'd like to give us a presentation this evening on their recent strategic plan.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
It's clear.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Can you see what I'm seeing on your screens also? Yeah, okay, great. So thank you for having us back again from our local immigration partnership. We were so excited to be invited back because we were here, when were we here last? Before Christmas, I think it was November maybe. We didn't have our formulated strat plan, which I will be handing out to you afterwards. But as you can see, it's very important to have a strategic plan for immigration and newcomers because we have to be more welcoming to our newcomers in Portage la Prairie. There's lots of factors that are going on, such as aging. We're having more people die and less birth rate. So we're declining in population, actually. We're filling our labor shortages, which are becoming more and more as we have more industry coming into Portage la Prairie, and more coming, I think, in the future. And we're also having a larger tax base. That helps out our city, our area. And we have a more diverse and rich culture and community here with the newcomers coming. And they bring new businesses. So it's all a win-win sort of thing. And Mayor Irvin Ferris said it's the right thing to do. Oops. Sorry about that. Backwards, forwards. So as you can see, there's the mission written down for you to read. But we also have a vision, and that is that Portage la Prairie is a welcoming and inclusive city for newcomers, where all the residents feel the sense of respect, community purpose, and belonging. We have to remember that most of us are originally from ancestors who immigrated here also. None of us were born right in Canada unless we can say that we are 100% Indigenous. So always keep that in mind. Your people came from somewhere also. They had to be welcomed at some time also. So we need to also be welcoming. So we have 5 main strategic directions. There's language and learning to start off with, and educational opportunities. And here in Canada, it's a right to be educated. We must help our newcomers attain the best educational possibilities and assist them in gaining the language that makes them successful to attend post-secondary schooling if necessary. And this way, the newcomers will be more successful and be able to find careers and remain in our community, because that is so important. We can get them here, but how do we keep them? We need to keep them, retain them in our community. And offering good educational supports is one way. Social integration and building a sense of community is the second way that we can do this. How do we do this? By making them feel welcome. I like to say this quote, and I don't say it correctly, but you can invite people to come to the dance. So I invite Vern, and I invite Canel to a dance. But then I just ignore them once I get to the dance. I don't ask them to dance, to actually dance with me. And that is how we become more welcoming. You can invite people, but then if you keep them at bay, you're still not doing your job fully of being welcoming. Do you get the difference there? You can say, hey, how's it going? Hi, Melissa, how are you? But if I don't invite you, let's go for coffee, then I really haven't done my full due diligence. So it's also really neat to learn about different cultures of the newcomers that come. We can learn about history and cultures of the indigenous people, because sometimes our newcomers come with preconceived notions and stereotypes that they've heard about in the media, and they're not true. So we need to myth bust and teach the proper learnings at orientation for our newcomers. That's very important, to create that inclusivity and that community and the building of all these bridges together. We need to work with stakeholders to create inclusion for social and sports and recreation opportunities and events within the community for newcomers. You always hear the saying that sports brings people together. Imagine a soccer ball. It's played in many, many countries of the world. Soccer can unite people in a common thread. So other sports and activities that are commonalities between us, that creates community, that creates welcoming. That creates that, I want to stay here, I want to live here, I want to build here, I want to do business here. Of course, we have to meet the labor needs. We're growing. We are growing exponentially. We will continue to grow, but we have to know who's coming, what's coming, who needs to be hired, where are we getting those skilled workers from. This is where newcomers can play a big, big, big part. They are educated. They want to work. They want to join our community. They are looking for a new start, a new life here in Canada, in Portage la Prairie. So it's very exciting that they want to come to our community and work with us. And remember, when we have all these new businesses starting up, they may move from, someone might be moving from, say, Tim Hortons to working at Roquette. That opens up that job at Tim Hortons. Or that might open up a job anywhere. It could be anywhere, anywhere. So people will move laterally. They'll stay in the community. But we still have to fill the jobs that are being opened up. It's not just the new jobs. It's when people move laterally, too. So keep that in mind also. Affordable housing. I see with all your presentations that we are having more housing options come up. That's awesome. We need more of that. But what is affordable? It means different things to different people. Is it renting? Is it subsidized? Is it entry-level house buying for a new couple that may not have a lot to put down on a down payment? They want nice places too. When a newcomer comes from a different country, they often only come with luggage, clothing. They have to set up an entire household. Imagine pots, pans, towels, winter clothing, of course, because they probably come from somewhere that doesn't have winters like we do, boots, everything from the house, everything from the beginning, beds, furniture. It's an expensive proposition. So we need affordable housing. Perhaps this could be a strategy, a housing strategy in the future for you to keep in mind for City Hall. Actually plan the areas of the city where to develop entry-level housing that is affordable, because our mortgages, all the planning, you have to put more money down now. So there's not that option that was available before. It's a little bit more difficult now. And if you're coming from a different country and you're not yet a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, you have to put more money down. And of course, transportation. Everybody knows that this keeps coming back. It's been coming back since I was at the city in 2005. It has been coming back and back and back. Now we are, 14, 15 years later? It's still on the table. Something must be done. People come here, they don't have vehicles. They don't have driver's licenses yet. We have very cold winters. Yes, we can bike in the summer, but if we are going to get our workers to the outer edges of our city and beyond, we need some sort of a route. We need this to happen, and I realize there are things in the works. That is great, but keep it at top of mind, please, because it really needs to happen if we want to grow. So, moving forward, we have created 5 working groups. One of them is transportation. One of them is public relations, which deals with education and Indigenous relations, as well as sports and recreation. Employment and entrepreneurship. Another one is affordable housing. And the last is childcare. I'm excited about that new 76 spots that Todd was speaking about. We need to do that 4 more times to get to where we need to be today. I've spoken to all of the executive directors from the daycares. They pick up their phone and they're asked on a daily basis, do you have space? And they hate to say it, but they are full. They said they don't know what to do. They need buildings. They need this incorporated with bigger businesses. When the businesses are coming to town, we need to say, hey, build a building on your site. Build a building. Doesn't cost you that much. The daycares will run it. They'll lease it from you. It has to be in the planning for foresight, because we are behind the 8 ball right now with 300 to 400 spaces being needed for children. So I encourage the city to think of newcomers as one of the demographics when strategic planning in the future. And if you need help with that, we just did a report to gauge Portage la Prairie's newcomer readiness. And we can give this report to you. We can present it to you. In fact, we can get the gentleman who wrote it from Catapult Industries. He's a city planner, to come and actually give this report to you so that you can understand it. It's 64 pages long. We just received it at the end of March. Like, it's brand new off the presses. So if you're interested in that, we can definitely get Jeff Palmer to come and do a presentation to council to show you how we're doing in our newcomer readiness here in Portage la Prairie. And I appreciate your time, and I'm going to pass this on to Dawn Body here.
Hey everybody, it's good to be with you one of the best nights of the year, last night tonight. Any idea why? NCAA basketball championships. Last night was the ladies, tonight is the men, so I will not keep you long. It starts at 8 o'clock. I coached basketball for 25 years. This basketball is from the only year I won, 2004 at Yellow Quill School. These kids are now pharmacists in towns and stuff like that. One of the things that's going to, when you watch basketball with kids, it's really fun to watch the kids, but all that happens is the kids chase the ball. And wherever the ball goes, all 10 players go. And it's a riot. That's not going to happen tonight. If you race home, grab a beer and watch the basketball games, there's going to be strategy. And strategy is the difference. The best team does not always win. You could have the most height, the most talent, and you still might not win. I know that because Gonzaga Bulldogs, my team, is not playing tonight. Here's the invitation. Let's join up on a strategy and be strategic about what we're doing. You, all of you, and for the last couple of generations, have done so much as a city council to put the right things in place. We're in the perfect generation now to move this thing forward. Do you remember when the schools amalgamated? The population was going to be 70% of what it was. It's increased. Boy, were they wrong. Look at $1 billion in investment. A new daycare spot going up. A lot of that's because of you, all of you. Look at the work that Vern's doing. Look at the Indigenous coalition that you guys just voted on tonight, that all of you just voted on tonight. I coached for 25 years. Most of the years were girls. Everyone was a guy, so please don't be offended. Look at all the work that you guys are doing. The invitation is to partner with us and with other groups so we're strategic and not chasing the ball. What does that mean? Probably for transportation, it doesn't mean a bus. Who can afford it? But what does that mean when we look at other cities? There's so many good options out there for cities our size, across the country, across North America. For housing, what does that mean to get people into houses? The federal government just announced something. Could we announce something? Other communities are doing things. Steinbach's initiative is unbelievable to get people into houses. It's not all about dollars. It's about thinking and being strategic. And you guys have put the foundation in place. We have the height. We have the skills. I'll be the slow fat guy underneath the basket. I'll do my part. The invitation is for us to be one of the leaders in the community, so we're not chasing other communities. So people will say, look at Portage. People do that already. Stride Place has changed the way people think about our town. This weekend at that art thing, the This Is Me show, there's so much talent in this town. Arts, sports, look at our terriers. We have everything set up. With the right strategy, we can take this all to the next level. Thanks for your time.
Are there any questions for us?
Councillor Knox, you had questions?
Sure, I do. Thanks for your presentation. I just have a question because I love the strat plan, and I mean you guys are moving forward. I like that, but I think it's 2 years now that you've been here. Am I right?
Almost, yeah.
Almost 2 years.
June, yes.
So when you must have started this strat plan, you must have kind of thought about what we've done so far. So I'm just curious, like on measurable goals, what would you say in the last couple of years have been your most successful measurable goals as local immigration partnership in our community?
That's a very good question. I think it would just be getting together. Like we have things that are set up in our contract. We had to first set up our stakeholders group, our council. So we did that, and that's the 22 people that are around the table once a month. It was until just we were going quarterly as of March. Our second big goal to do was to set up the Immigration Advisory Table Group, which we've also done, and we meet at least every 2 months. And that's so that we can hear their lived experiences right from our newcomers. We are constantly networking with our settlement group, the Portage Learning and Literacy Center, but it's basically getting this whole community excited about what's going on in immigration, because people don't know that there's over 600 people that are being served at the Learning and Literacy Center in this last year. You don't see it, you see it more quietly. Another big thing that we've started to do, I don't know if you've seen in the newspaper, is we're telling stories about our newcomers that are coming into Portage la Prairie. So Thursday will be the 3rd installment. So we hope to put all of those together as one big story at the very end and be able to maybe go to print with that, just to show the different faces that are coming into Portage la Prairie and how they are contributing to our society here.
Yeah.
What else? Yes.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Victoria has something.
If I may.
If she may.
May I?
Go ahead.
We spent about the first 8 months establishing the council and making sure we had the right people around the table. And we learned quickly that we had to do a lot of myth busting at our own table. So we spent the first 8 months doing a lot of education about immigration and what it means for Manitoba and Canada, and specifically Portage la Prairie. So we had a lot of speakers come in and do some of that work with the council. So we did a lot of legwork up front to make sure that everybody didn't come in with biases or preconceived notions, and broke those barriers down.
Awesome, thank you. And I love the articles. One of them is my next door neighbor, so I learned a lot more than I already knew. So
excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Draycott.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Michelle, you did say it, and then again, Mrs. Espy said it. Myth busting. Myth busting, if you have to go through that through your own council, then obviously that's something that we need to work on in our community overall. Just getting rid of the preconceived notions of people coming into our community and what that means for us and what's happening when they come here. Do you have any strategies in place that you can share with us as to how your organization is going to be working on that particular strategy going forward?
Well, at the moment, I am writing a call for proposals that will be for 2020, and we're allowed to do projects such as cultural training and those sorts of things. So that would be definitely what we would like to bring into employers. We could come and talk to council about it. We could get you into a cultural awareness course. Just anything like that. We are able to do that coming up in the near future.
Can I also speak?
Yes, of course.
I think the really important thing is for us to always stay open and keep learning. So one of the sad things about my job is I don't work in Portage now. I work provincially, not for the provincial government, but supporting settlement. I don't tell people that I work with newcomers because I've been attacked at a golf course having a beer. I've been attacked at the Legion. Why do we want all those immigrants here? So now what I say to people is I make nonprofits better unless I know you. Those are our neighbors. Those are the people I have beer with. Those are the people I have coffee with. We have to keep talking, sharing, and being open to listening and learning from everybody. That's why I'm so passionate about newcomers. They've changed my life and all my assumptions. And so it's all up to us to keep learning, being neighbors, truly, and inviting them into our world, and inviting them to the Legion to have a beer with. Or Army Navy, I don't have a bias.
One's for Friday, one's for Saturday. Other questions from council?
Yeah, thank you. So very good. Thank you for coming as well. I think when you look at the initiatives that are being undertaken, they align very much with, I think, a lot of the things that we're doing at council. But one of the things that I think that we can all agree in our community is that, you know, there tends to be some overlap at times between different organizations, and I'm not suggesting that's the case here. But I guess the challenge for your group would be to be very specific with us in terms of a need. If there's something that you specifically want around a particular initiative that you're working on, if you can narrow that focus and be as clear as possible, because I think there's sometimes a bit of ambiguity between, you know, we want the support of council, but we actually don't know what that means all the time. So please, if there is things that we can help with, let's be as very specific as possible. I know you made a comment just around affordable housing. You know, we too have those discussions as what is our role in that, but if it's simply saying we need X amount of area for development and this is the zoning that's required to do that, that's very specific. That's what we'll be looking, at least from my chair, that's what I'll be looking for.
Thank you, and I'll take that back to my stakeholders and the working groups because they're just getting established right now.
Any other questions from council?